Hey guys, it's Louise and welcome to my channel. For this video, I wanted to wish everybody a very happy but late New Year's. And now I know as of the day of uploading this, it's already January 18th and New Year's Eve day was like 3 weeks ago. But I still really wanted to make a video just saying Happy New Year's and talking a little bit about how 2025 was. However, before I get into all that, I want to explain why this video in particular is coming out 3 weeks late. Because as I said, I wanted to do something on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, preferably New Year's Day, but some crazy shit went down in my life, personally, and it prevented me from doing this video on time. And I'd like to discuss that. If you guys follow my community posts, you might already kind of know what happened, but I think it's important for me to just use my voice and explain it a little bit more in depth, especially for those who might not read community posts and just actually want to hear it from a video. And I just think it's kind of therapeutic for me to talk about it using my voice, especially because of what happened being so fucked up and random. Alright, so everybody wants to know, what the hell am I talking about? So for context, on September 22nd, 2025, I had surgery on my heart to treat my congenital heart disease known as tricuspid atresia. And this was a surgery that my cardiology specialist had been kind of teasing with, playing around with, probably since 2018, I would say. When I was about 17 years old is when he started thinking about doing this. And at the time, I was very far away from my specialty hospital. I lived, 6 hours away. And then if it was a surgery, I'd be there for at least a night, because, it's heart surgery. But could be longer depending on how it all goes. And also, I think he just wanted to make sure I was medically ready as well. And so it was delayed. And for a while, it seemed indefinite. It was going to happen at some point, but we have no idea when. Anyways, time goes on, and in 2024, I move into where I am now, which is my adult foster care house, and it's 3 hours away instead of 6, and the house is clean, and there's no family drama, and it seems like, okay, I'm also an adult now. I'm 23 years old. Can we get going with this? Because you've been talking about this since I was 17, roughly. And so I went to my cardiologist again for my annual checkup in 2025. I think it was July. Yeah, early July 2025. And he said, okay, you're closer, you're in a better place, you're an adult. I think it's time to move on and do this surgery. And so, like I said, on September 22nd, they did the surgery. And it went really well. I only spent a night in the hospital afterward. And then we spent another night in a hotel nearby, just in case anything went down. But nothing did, so I got to go home the day after that. And I was fine. I was walking normally within a week. And then on October 17th, I got to go see Paul McCartney, which was, 3 weeks after surgery? Not even? Not even a month out of surgery. I go see Paul, which I will talk about later in the video more in depth. And then in early November, I go back to my cardiologist to see how I'm doing post-surgery. And I tell him that one of my post-surgery meds called Plavix, I wanted to discontinue because it gave me horrible, horrible bloody noses that went on for like 20 minutes. And I just didn't think it was okay for me to be on that. And so he switched that and took me off my 81 milligrams of aspirin and put it to 325, which is the adult dose. And so I go home with my new adult prescription of aspirin I'm no longer on the post-surgical Plavix, and I seem okay. And then all of a sudden, I would say maybe a week later, I started to get really weird abdominal cramps in my stomach, and it almost felt like menstrual cramps. If you're a lady, you know what that is and how it feels. And it was really weird to me because I'd been on norethindrone birth control since April of 2025, and I hadn't had my period. And I wasn't spotting or anything that signified that it was coming back. And I also had diarrhea. And at first I chalked it up to, okay, I'm taking adult aspirin every day now, and maybe it just takes a little bit to adjust. Like, I know it's a medication I've been on since I was 4 months old, but it's a way higher dose. It's 4 times as much as what I'm used to, and so that's what I chalked it up as. I then had my yearly physical with my local general practitioner, and I still had the diarrhea, I still had the abdominal pain, but again, I was still kind of chalking it up to my aspirin, and so I didn't say anything to her. And she also said that my intestines sounded normal through her stethoscope, and so that also put me at ease that, okay, it's definitely my medication, I'll get over it. And then Thanksgiving came around, and around that time of November, my abdominal pain got so severe that it actually made me nauseous. Now, I didn't actually puke. Nothing actually happened. But I literally would like, ugh, like that, like that kind of noise, because it hurt so much. And the diarrhea ended up getting more frequent. At this point, I was going at least 4 times a day, which is not normal, especially for me. And it was at this point where my caregivers I live with started to suspect that I might have had C. diff infection. And if you don't know what C. diff infection is, it's a very common and awful stomach infection, bacteria infection to be specific, that is really easy to get, especially in hospitals. And symptoms sometimes don't come up until 2-3 months after hospitalization. And so I was kind of still in that 3-month window of maybe having C. diff. And so I contacted my local doctor again, asking to do a C. diff test, a stool sample test. And I, of course, I had to tell her about all my symptoms, the abdominal pain and the excessive diarrhea and, everything that was going on. And I explained to her, I didn't say it at my physical because I had just seen my cardiologist. He had just switched my medications. I was chalking it up to that, especially because it sounded normal to her on her stethoscope when she listened to my stomach. And so after I explained that to her, she ordered an abdominal x-ray as well as a stool sample and a blood test to test my thyroid as well, because that was another theory that I had, was maybe my thyroid was acting up for some reason, like too low or something, because I have hypothyroidism. Anyways, I do the tests, and all of them come back normal. I don't have C. diff. I didn't have norovirus, and they tested for a bunch of stuff. E. coli, salmonella, name a stomach thing. They tested for it, pretty much, and it was all negative. Except for, it did show signs of something happening. Like, there was, like, a lot of white blood cells or something. I don't know. Like, it showed that there was inflammation in my body in the stool sample. But, like, all the typical stomach bacteria things were all negative. So, she recommended maybe going to see a gastroenterologist about having IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. And so that was something that we were kind of considering as well. And the thing that's weird though is my thyroid was out of whack, and so she upped my prescription, and after she did that, the abdominal pain went away. Like, I didn't have that, cramping happen anymore. And so I thought, okay, that's got to be it then. If everything else is negative, maybe it's my thyroid. But unfortunately, the diarrhea got worse. And on Christmas Eve, not to be nasty, but it got to the point where I was having accidents. And I was going to the bathroom probably 6 or more times a day, maybe 10 times sometimes. Like, I was going a lot. And it was all, how diarrhea is. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to go call a gastroenterologist after the holidays because at this point, Christmas was coming up. Christmas Day, however, is when shit got fucking crazy. And all it started with was a little bit of leg ache, like a little minor pain in my left leg. And at first I thought, oh, I just slept on it weird, or I sat on it in a weird position too long. The typical things that come to your brain when you have a little ache. But then by December 26th, it was like lingering and getting stronger. And I pushed through it because we had people over for the holidays, obviously. And then on the 27th, I got to the point where I couldn't even walk up my own stairs, really. And then by evening, I could barely hold my own weight on my leg. And I don't want to talk about how heavy or fat I am, but I'm just going to say I'm not that big. Like, I shouldn't struggle with that. And at this point, I was also wearing period underwear, like those rippable Depends, because I was still having accidents and going diarrhea a bunch. And my caregivers were like, all right, there's another symptom, the stomach thing is getting worse, we need to do something. And so they ended up calling basically a medical crisis line and had me talk to a nurse. And after I explained what was going on, she said I needed to come to the ER. And so I went to the local ER, and they did a CT scan and some blood tests, I think, and then a vascular ultrasound on my leg. And they found out that I had a clot in my left leg. And that's why I couldn't bear my own weight. And they also found out on the CT that my liver was extremely cirrhosed with like stuff all over it. And the doctor, before he even explained what was going on, he asked me, "Are you an alcoholic? Or do you drink a lot?" And I'm like, "No. Like, why are you asking this?" And I didn't expect that to be how my Christmas time ended. Then on December 28th, my local hospital decided that they wanted to attempt to surgically remove the blood clot in my leg. And I was very nervous because I've only been to my specialty hospital for surgery, which is Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And I was very nervous, but I wanted the clot gone. And because I'm a cardiac patient, it's kind of, we need to do it right now. And so I agreed for them to try it because it didn't seem like that crazy of a surgery. So I figured if I'm going to do a surgery outside of Mayo, this one's probably okay. But then they took me to the OR, and before they even sedated me, like they were just cleaning, putting iodine and the stickers on and, whatever else they got to do. But I started turning blue, purple in my skin, and my oxygen was like 65%. And like I said, I've never had surgery anywhere but Mayo before. And so they ended up aborting it, canceling, and saying I needed to be transferred to Mayo Clinic because they're the only ones that know how to handle me from a surgical standpoint. However, I live in Minnesota, and it's late December, and so it was blizzarding outside, of course, heavy, heavy snow, ice on the roads, and Mayo Clinic was like, we're not going to send an ambulance. The roads are shit. And I don't think they even thought that it was, like, even if the roads were fine, I don't think they thought that an ambulance would be quick enough to get me to the hospital, considering what my condition was at that point. And so they had to arrange a helicopter flight for the transfer. And that scared the crap out of me. Absolutely terrified me. More than the clot, more than my liver thing. And I actually ended up crying. I ended up crying because I had always been told that I should never be in an aircraft because of my breathing issues and all that. And so I started crying thinking, that's it. I'm dead. I'm dead right now. Not because of my blood clot, not because of my liver or whatever the hell else is going on. I'm going to get in that aircraft, we're going to go in the sky, and I'm going to die. Literally is what I thought. But unfortunately, despite my anxiety attack, I had no choice because my local hospital was not equipped to handle how complex my body is. And I also had no choice because we were pretty much on a ticking clock because of my cardiac issues. Having a clot, that can literally be deadly. And so they gave me an anti-anxiety pill. I have no idea what drug it was. I didn't ask. I just took it because I didn't have a choice about the helicopter, but I didn't want to do it. And so they're like, we're going to give you this, and you're going to take it, and then we're going to go. Once I was actually in the helicopter, I felt okay, I guess. I wasn't crying anymore, if that's any indication. I think I was still pretty anxious. I didn't really say much. The nursing staff that was there with me kept like squeezing my hand and asking me if I was okay, and I didn't really use words. I started like dissociating at this point, I feel like, because all I really said was or like very little words, like still communicating, but kind of in a more mute, childlike way. Which, looking back on hindsight, was kind of stupid because, I had a clot and I was very stroke risk. And so, because I was doing that, they started asking me, like, do you know where you are right now? And, making sure I was, like, with it. And I'm like, yeah, I know where I am, but I'm freaking the hell out, like that kind of thing. Anyways, I arrived at Mayo Clinic at about 1 in the morning on December 29th, I think it was. And they just had me on the cardiac unit for a few days on an IV drip called heparin. And then after, I think, a day or two there, they took me to the ICU because they put me on a drug that was supposed to, like, make my heart beat faster. And I needed to be in the ICU during that. And I think I was in the ICU for about 2 to 3 days as well. And so that's where I was during New Year's, was in an ICU in the Mayo Clinic St. Mary's Hospital. And I remember on New Year's Eve, around the time when the New York City ball drop was about to happen, my nurse gave me this drink with potassium in it to raise my potassium because it was very low. And it actually wasn't a nasty drink, but here's the thing, it tasted like orange soda, and I don't drink soda. I don't drink anything like that. I just drink water, apple juice, and milk. And sometimes fruit punch, depending on the brand, but very rarely. And like I said, I don't drink soda at all. Because when I was 10, I had a throat surgery, and the carbonation really hurts my throat. Even over a decade later, it still does. And it probably always will. Because my throat isn't actually throat material anymore. It's rib cartilage. And so I think it just reacts to carbonation differently than throat material would. And so yeah, that's how I spent my New Year's Eve, was at the ICU drinking this soda type medication. And I remember I just pushed myself trying to drink as much of it I could. It was just a little white cup, like there wasn't a lot of it. But when you don't drink soda because it burns your freaking throat, it feels like a lot, you know? And I sucked it out until the ball drop was over at 11 my time, because, you know, I'm an hour behind New York. And the nurse came in like, hey, did you watch the ball drop? And I'm like, yeah, I did, but take this medicine away. I can't take it anymore. But luckily, I think I did over half of it. And so the nurse said, you did fine. At least you did over half. I think he even said, you did better than I thought you would. So that's good, I guess. And I don't remember if it was New Year's Eve or day or whatever, but when I was in the ICU, because I didn't have my legs reclined, I had them down like all day, my left leg literally turned into like a purple balloon. It literally looked like a balloon, like an elephant's leg, and I was like, what the hell? So yeah, that also happened. Eventually, I got to go back to just the cardiac floor, and my medical team decided that I needed to have surgery on my heart again, because they suspected that my stomach issues and the clot and pretty much everything that was going on with me was caused by my stent device that was placed in September being too big, and the left side of my body basically being neglected. And they also found out that I had edema in my lungs, which is water around my lungs. So I was on Lasix, which is a water medication that makes you pee a lot. After returning to the cardiac floor, I just sat there on the heparin drip for a few days, waiting for January 7th. And then on January 7th, they did this other surgery. And then I stayed there for 2 more days. And I finally got to go home on January 9th. And so that's where I was. That's why this video is extremely late. And I already know that whole thing took over 10 minutes to explain. But like I said, it was fucking crazy. And now for the rest of the video, I just kind of want to go over everything else that kind of happened in 2025. And then what I have planned for 2026. The only other big thing that happened in 2025 in my life was that I saw Paul McCartney live on October 17th, and it was incredible. It was my first concert, and I am so incredibly honored that Paul, the legend himself, got to be my first concert. I'm just blown away by how amazing he is. His energy is just unmatched, especially considering he's 83 years old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how does he do that? How does he go up there for 3 hours and just rock the hell on, man? I go a little more in depth in my video talking about my experience. So if you want to hear more about my experience seeing Paul, you can watch that video. I'll put it in the description, the link to it, if you're curious. The other thing that happened is that I joined the Autistic Society of Minnesota, and I attend the LGBTQ support group and the women's support group. And that's a really big deal to me because I was finally diagnosed with autism, ADHD, post traumatic stress disorder, and persistent depression disorder, which I also go in depth in another video called Autism Acceptance Month, which I made in April. I will also put that in the description if you're interested. So yeah, that's about everything else that happened in 2025 that was really major. Okay, to end this video, I want to talk a little bit about how my YouTube channel is going to look for 2026. And to tell you the truth, this year I have absolutely no clue, unfortunately, and that breaks my heart because I know there's 3,000.36 of you guys, 3.36, which is amazing, and I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. But yeah, especially with the crazy medical bullshit that I'm going through right now, I have no idea what the future of my channel looks like. Not saying I want to quit, but I think posts are gonna be very sparse and very rare, especially videos and edits. I'm gonna try to be active on the community post tab thing, whatever you want to call it, but as for videos, I honestly am clueless on where the trajectory of my channel is for that. I have a lot of ideas that come to my mind, but then when I actually have the time to sit and make the video, I'd rather be asleep, or I'd rather watch other people's YouTube videos, or I'd rather play video games with my dad, or I'd rather draw, or I'd rather work on a coloring book or a word search. I don't know. I just find other things that my mind gravitates towards, like editing and working on YouTube videos, just seems like motivational hell to me. And this even affects my Instagram account, MX Cartney, which sucks because I love editing. It's not that I hate editing, I really do like it, but like whenever I have free time, I'd rather do something else. As for ideas that I do have though, I'm gonna say them, but I'm not gonna promise them because, like I said, my motivation is just gone. But one of the things I wanted to do was use AI and make Beatles play Cards Against Humanity. I've seen a lot of AI videos of like the presidents, like Biden and Donald Trump and, all them guys playing video games and Cards Against Humanity and whatnot. And I thought it would be really funny to try to do that with the Beatles using AI. But that takes a lot of time to write and think of like what they're gonna say. Because, use the AI for the voices, but I would actually have to sit down and write what they'd say, and then I'd have to look for a deck of Cards Against Humanity cards to make it a little more authentic, which I have a lot of those, but, it takes a lot of effort to do that. Even using AI, it does. Another thing that I had an idea for, very loosely, was doing another interactive game similar to my Paul McCartney's Missing Albums game that I made in 2022. I didn't really have a plot. I kind of wanted to sit down this year and try to make a plot for a new one of those. Another idea I had was just remaking that whole thing, but with AI voices to make it higher quality. But again, I don't really know if I'm really going to bring those into reality or not, the new one or the remaster. Because honestly, in 2022, when I did Paul's game, I didn't get as much attention as I thought I would. And not that I do YouTube for attention. I do it, to show love to Paul and his family. But I worked really hard on making the Missing Albums game, and I edited it all on my iPad. And, because of that, I know it's not the best quality. But for a fandom project, it was pretty ambitious. And I don't know, I kind of expected it to blow up a lot more than it did. And so that's kind of one of my things too, is like, should I do a big project like that again for it to not really be seen by people? And I want to make it very clear that I do not make money on any of my videos. Any of my videos that you click on that have ads go directly to YouTube, maybe Paul McCartney, and maybe whatever artist the song is from that I use for my edits. That's where the money goes. I don't make a dime. I'm not even signed up for that. I don't get enough views for that. I think I have enough subscribers, but I don't have enough views. And even if I did, I wouldn't have this channel monetized anyway. I would make a new channel if I was interested in that, but I don't. I just like sharing a little bit about my life, which is what this vlog is, and showing love to Paul. That's it. That's all I want to do. But still, when you put a lot of effort into something, you want people to see it because you work so hard. So that's what I'm getting at. My other idea that I had for my YouTube channel was to do a playthrough of Tomodachi Life 2 Living the Dream, using my own me, Paul's me, Linda's me, John's me, Ringo's me, the whole Beatle universe, plus me and some other celebrities that I can think of that I like. But unfortunately, I don't know when the game's coming out. It's supposed to be, I think, spring of 2026, but it could be a GTA 6 situation where it could be delayed indefinitely. And then the other thing is I've never done a playthrough like that before. And that game is going to be either on the Nintendo Switch or the Nintendo Switch 2, which are both systems that I don't know how they work. And I also don't know how to screen record TV. So, like I said, that was an idea that I had, but I have no idea how to make it work. And then the last idea that I had for my YouTube channel was to do an audiobook for my very long-awaited story called Parenting Paul, which I've tried to make audiobooks either by chapter using just a stereotypical AI voice or Paul's AI voice. But I didn't even finish the story. I'm still trying to write it, even though I started it back in 2023. And then, again, like, even though I used AI for that, it still takes a lot of effort, because I want to make sure that the voices have the right voice inflections. I need to make sure there's no glitches. I need to edit it precisely when I want voices to switch, for when Heather says a line, or when Paul says a line, or whoever says a line. And then again, kind of like what happened with my Paul's Missing Albums game, I don't want to do it if it's not going to get attention. Yeah, I don't know. Really what it comes down to is I've been really struggling with motivation. For reasons that I don't even understand. I kind of do, but I kind of don't, And so, yeah, sorry to end it kind of on that kind of weird note, but that's kind of where I'm at, entering 2026. I do want to say one more time, thank you for all the support. Like, it's actually crazy to me that I have 3.36k subscribers, That's absolutely mind-blowing, and I'm incredibly thankful. And I wish you all a Happy New Year. Thank you for watching.